Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Figma 300 Leonidas figure. It's number 270 if you're looking it up, trying to find one, and it is a pretty darn good figure. There's a fuzzy on there. Got it. Very, very cool figure. I saw photos of it and I'm like, that's a really cool looking figure. Too bad I'm not actually interested in buying one just because it's not my type of figure. I don't really like movie versions of characters. I mean, I know it's a real person. It's based on a comic though. Anyway, I just didn't want to buy it. But luckily someone loaned it to me so I could review it and so you guys could see it. And I have to say I'm very pleased with this figure. Couple small issues here and there and a couple really awesome things here and there. So definitely worth taking a closer look. So let's get it off the stand and do just that. The first thing I want to point out before I look at the figure is that this back insert piece that looks like that hole that he kicked the guy into, that can actually be removed. It can be removed like any backing normally can, but this one is actually meant to be displayed if you want to, and it's perforated if you actually want to take out the painted part of the hole. You can do that and make a cool display if you really wanted to. So that is an option worth noting. All right, let's get rid of the stand. That's not the stand. Let's get rid of the box and look at this really cool figure. Figma's been really hit or miss. You guys saw the Bruce Lee figure. Oh my God, that was bad. And now this one, pretty darn good, I have to say, which is kind of interesting because there's some odd things about this figure that make it good. He stands about 16.5 centimeters, which makes him about 6.5 inches. That's to the top of the helmet, so he's obviously a little bit shorter than that. Let's take the helmet off and I can give you a better height measurement. Don't worry about the thing on his head, that will go away. 6 inches, so pretty decent size. We're going to leave the helmet off actually. We're going to take all of the accessories off real quick because we don't need them. I'll show you them, but we don't need them on the figure. Now the shield, very similar, come on, if you own the Figma Link from Zelda, if you own that figure, you're going to be familiar with this general design for the shield, which we'll talk about right now. The shield, all of the parts come off of it. So you can take it off completely, put his arm in place, and then put the strap on right here. That'll go on his arm. Unfortunately, the arm doesn't fit that well in there. If you noticed, mine didn't. I didn't get it to actually close up. It was kind of like that. So that's a bit of a bummer. You could probably play with it and get it to work a little bit better. And then this part, it separates so that you can slide it into his hand. It goes like this. So you want to take the top piece off and slide it into his hand and then put it back into place. So you'll notice multiple pieces, small pieces. Once you put it together, it's good though, so just be aware of that and be careful. But really nicely detailed shield. Looks very good. We have two different helmets. I'll show you these first. We have this one, which has the mohawk on it. Again, very nicely detailed. It does seem to sit a little bit high on the head, but it's not a huge deal. Then we have this one, which does not have the mohawk, which is also very nicely detailed. They did a really good job with the weathering and the pitting and the dents and dings and stuff. Let me pull the head off, actually, so I can show you what I mean about it. It seems to sit just a tiny bit high. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, it does seem to sit a little bit high, I think. You get a whole lot of eyebrow there. I don't think he had that much showing in the movie, but I could be wrong. It might be just fine. So it's not a big deal either way, but I thought that the brow of the helmet would come down farther to block more of his face. Maybe, maybe not. So while we're here, we might as well look at the faces and heads. So obviously this part of the head is meant for holding the helmet. And if you don't want to use a helmet, you can just pop that off and use the one that doesn't have the big tab in it. And then you do have to swap the neck peg out, which is a little odd to me. I thought that they should probably include one for both heads, but I guess they cheaped out and didn't. So that's an issue. It's not a huge issue, but it's something to note. Then we do have the two different faces. We have the angry face and the non-angry face, and they look pretty good. It's not the best likeness to Gerard Butler, but it's passable. And here's the interesting thing. They use that dot matrix technology for the printing or for the painting that, dang it, that figure arts used for the Bruce Lee head and many other figures. It's kind of fuzzy looking up close, but it does give you a much more realistic look. They did not do that for the Bruce Lee, and it looked like total butt. So it's interesting that they switched over to that, and now this looks so much better. One thing worth noting though is on the angry face, the eyes seem to be a little bit crossed. Now you can't pose them. They are a separate piece of plastic, so it's odd to me that they still painted them crooked. It seems like they shouldn't have done that. But it also seems to me like if they're going to use the dot matrix, they probably should have just done the eyes like that also. Granted, the eyes done this way are much sharper and crisper. They are, as you can see, slightly crossed. But either way, really nice head sculpts. Even though they're not perfectly accurate, they look really good. So we have those. Then we have some interchangeable hands, but first let's look at the sword, because the sword is nicely done also. It comes apart just like the shield handle, so you can slide that into his hand. And now we've got this really nicely detailed sword. Very pleased with that. So that's cool. We do have the necklace, but I guess that counts as an accessory, but I would just leave it on him. No big deal there. Let's put a head on him because it will look better if we have a head on him for the review. Which head should we do? Let's do the angry head. Why not? If I can get that on there. Yeah, see how it's weird that you have to swap out the peg? Or the articulation. You should have just had a second joint with the figure. If I can even put it together. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to mention. Good thing is the heads don't fit together as well as I'd like. There's a pretty decent gap. See how the head just looks a little odd? I don't know, it looks weird, but still good. It's an odd thing. Anyway, we have interchangeable hands. So we have gripping hands, which you already saw me using for either side. So we have those, that's good. He comes with the fist hands on him in the packaging. Pretty standard. And then we have a variety of style pose hands. Nicely done. I love the flesh tones on this figure. Looks so good. Kind of muted, but still very nice saturation, very nice shading. Not aggressively shaded, but it's very, very well done. I love the flesh tones. Good flesh tones can make a figure like this or break it, and they definitely did a good job. So very, very happy with that. And then we have another accessory, which is a spear. Not a whole lot to show. It does come apart at the end down here, so you can get his hand around it without breaking anything, so that's nice. And then lastly, of course, we get our Figma display stand. I should talk about the cape. It counts as an accessory, even though I imagine most people are going to keep it on him permanently. It is a cloth cape, but it's done really nicely. It's a nice tight weave or a tight knit, so that's good. It's only translucent if you have harsh lighting. I don't even know if you guys can see through it, so that's okay. And it's sewn like this, so that it hangs properly. Now, what you're going to see when you first open the package is that it looks like this would go over the shoulder, but you don't want to do that because I'll show you why. If you put that over the shoulder, it's going to stick out really weird. And at first I was like, oh, come on, this is horrible. This looks really bad. But that's not how you want it, okay? You want this little clasp thing to come toward the front a little bit, and that'll help. But you still have that big thing sticking out, and you're going to be like, what the heck? That's no good. So what I think you should do, and what I did, and what works really well, is fold that down. If you tuck that in facing down, it makes the entire thing hang exactly the way you want it to. It's perfect once you tuck that little piece, that folded piece down. It's perfect. Very good. I love that. And it's long enough to droop onto the table, thin enough that it hangs fairly naturally. It's not perfect. It never will be at this scale, but very nice. Just make sure you tuck this piece in. You don't want it sticking out like that, okay? Tuck it in, and you will be good to go. And you'll see how to do it. I mean, it makes perfect sense once you realize it. So no big deal. So very nicely done. I love that cape. One of my friends / customer got one recently and told me how good it was, and I was like, nah, it can't be that good. And it's pretty good. I like it. He was right. All right, so the figure. We have these pieces that are, it looks like they're mostly glued on. Well, yeah, they're separate. So that explains why the paint job is so clean for those straps across his back and chest. So that's really nice. Those are all separate. This is obviously separate. His trunks are a separate floating piece. Nicely sculpted, nicely painted. Same thing goes for all of it. It's all really nicely sculpted and nicely painted. I am very pleased with it. The calves could have a little more definition back there with those straps and everything, but it's not terrible. As far as the articulation goes, it's pretty standard. You guys already saw what we have for the head itself. The neck, it seems to lean in every direction, so I think it's a ball peg, but Figma doesn't normally do that. It could be a ball hinge. Shoulders, standard Figma shoulders, so That's a bit of a problem because the articulation, the range isn't great. It's a ball peg into the torso and then a ball hinge and a straight peg going into the shoulder, which means it looks really good like that, but then when you go to pose it, it's not gonna look great, and you're gonna be pretty limited. Your bicep swivel is very limited. Luckily, you can swivel it around down here at the elbow, which is just your standard hinge. And then you have another ball hinge for the wrist. So even though it's not the best articulation, it's good enough, and it looks really good in certain poses, so I'm okay with it. The torso articulation, it's a ball peg going into the upper torso, then a ball hinge with a straight peg going into the lower torso. So you're going to have to play with it a little bit to get it to go to where you want, but it will provide you the articulation you want, just as long as you are willing to mess around with it a little bit. Again, this is a floaty piece. The crotch is a floaty piece. This connects with a single ball peg going into the lower torso and then a single ball peg going into either hip. And they both have sockets to move the legs around. It does feel a little bit limited going forward. You're not going to be able to put them in too many crouching poses without really trying. And if you do, you're most likely going to dislocate that hip peg. But it's not like you can't just pop it back on. And it does have a thigh swivel in there. Single jointed knee. Not the best knee in the world, but let's use this side. Definitely good enough. I do wish they got that color for the joint a little more accurate. That's awfully brown looking compared to the rest of his skin. It's not terrible though. And then for the ankles, we have our standard Figma hinge, which will give you your ankle rocker, as you can see, and a decent hinge. It's not great. And a toe hinge, which is actually pretty good. All in all, this figure is really good. If they got that likeness down a little bit more, it's still a very cartoonish sculpt. They're not great at the realistic faces. They just aren't. So if that was better, this figure would be aces. It's so well done. The musculature, as you can see, their Bruce Lee looked like an alien. This guy's got really nice musculature. Still no naples. He's got no naples. I don't know why he doesn't have any naples, but he doesn't. But I guess that's okay. Also, if you're wondering what accent that was, it wasn't really anything. It was like an Irish, German, alien accent. I don't know. Don't worry about it. Very cool figure, guys. I recommend it. I might go buy one. I don't want to, but I want to because it's such a cool looking figure, even though I don't want the figure. I don't know. I recommend it though, for sure. For Shazzle, 100%. Go get you one. It's a nice one. If you guys like figures like this, check out my Figma playlist. It's not just Figma, it's import figures of all varieties of this general scale. So check it out. Lots of stuff in there you might like. And I think you guys should probably come back to the channel on a regular basis because I have new videos every morning. Whether they're figure reviews, custom figures, video game talk, video game play, TV talk, movie talk, reviews, all kinds of stuff, guys. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you keep coming back, and in the meantime, make sure you keep collecting.